Well, Gilbert Gottfried, I think one of the funniest people who was ever born. I think most people believe Gilbert Gottfried was the one of the funniest people ever born. Passed away last week at the age of 67. His comedy underwent a transformation in the early aughts. After 9/11, he told some jokes. I think in between the towers coming down, he told some off-color jokes, and then changed his act. I think he changed his act. It became really prominent when he appeared in a documentary called The Aristocrats, directed by our next guest and an old friend of mine, and it's great to see him, Paul Provenza. Among many, many accomplishments, directed the incredible movie The Aristocrats. Welcome back, Paul Provenza. Gilbert Gottfried being dead, for or against? I'm gonna go out on a limb here.
You know what? The country is polarized. For sure. Gilbert was a genius. There's no two ways about it. He was Absolutely. A genius. Absolutely. You know, whether you like what he did or you don't like what he did, you have to recognize that he was completely 100% singular. There's never been a comedian like him before him, and there won't be another comedian like him after him. He was a one, as far as I'm concerned.
Right. When did you're a little problem with your connection. When did you meet Gilbert?
Oh, I met Gilbert when I first started out in comedy. You know, I actually used to see him performing at the Improv when I was in high school. So he's only 3 years older than I, and he started doing stand-up when he was 15. Yeah. So when I was 15, I was going to the Improv as a patron because, you know, they never checked IDs back then. You could sit there and order tequila sunrises all night. And I would go and I would bring some friends of mine that I know had a really good sense of humor that I thought would get Gilbert. And almost every time that I went, Gilbert was on because Gilbert, and he told me that he only found this out recently, but they used to save Gilbert for when they wanted to clear the house because he was so different and people didn't know what to make of him that, you know, if they had 15 people left and they wanted to send the wait staff home, they put Gilbert on to clear out the room. And I would stay as long as the show was going on. So I saw him almost every time I went to see him when I was a kid. And then by the time I turned 16 or 17, I started hanging out at the Improv. And that's when I met Gilbert. He was there every night. And just so funny. I mean, I can't think of another comedian that everybody quoted constantly. Everybody would just suddenly go into a Gilbert bit. They were so out of left field. And, you know, he started doing impressions. But what he did with them, you know, when he started doing them, we're talking like the early 70s when he started performing. And was doing impressions, but that was back in the days when, you know, people did impressions like, well, you know, Kirk Douglas and Humphrey Bogart and John Wayne, they all went to Hollywood High School and their classrooms must have looked something like this, you know, and they do that. Well, Gilbert was doing things like, you know, Bob Dylan getting a haircut from Floyd the Barber on the Andy Griffith Show, you know. He did my favorite impression of all time, which I told him about. My favorite impression of all time was Ed Sullivan going to the dentist, in which he doesn't even do an Ed Sullivan impression. So
it's kind of like Drew Friedman. It's kind of like Drew Friedman, his cartoons.
Yeah. You know, I wouldn't call them cartoons.
I'm just saying, like Drew Friedman would draw Ed Sullivan going to the dentist.
Oh, I guess, yeah. Well, no, the Ed Sullivan going to the dentist bit was so funny because, he, like I said, he didn't even do Ed Sullivan. He would just go, Ed Sullivan going to the dentist, and then he would mime the dentist with the drill going. This is just brilliant. Well, but you were talking about his transition into becoming really, really dark. But that streak was always in him. It
really?
was always in him. I remember one of his very, very old bits was absolutely brilliant. He would just suddenly go, I ran into Jackie Kennedy at a party and I wanted to chat to her. And I have a little icebreaker I like to use at parties. And I said, Jackie, tell me, can you remember where you were and what you were doing when Kennedy was shot? He always had a wicked dark streak.
And we're not going to do the Coretta Scott King joke. Do not do that one.
Which one is that?
No, not for the show. But that, yeah, he was something else, and he was adorable.
And just really inventive. And he had this, there was a poetry to what he did. I know that sounds a little overblown, but there was poetry. And like when he tells the story about, he did, and I don't know how much of this is on tape anywhere, because I told him shortly before he died, I said, you are, of all the comedians that I've known in my lifetime, you are without a doubt the person who has created and thrown away or just completely forgotten about more material than any other comedian I know. I mean, he just hours and hours of stuff that he just stopped doing and just moved on. But he used to do a thing about, I was in my bed sleeping and I heard a noise on my rooftop and I went upstairs to the roof and a little spaceship landed on the roof. And I'm not doing it justice, of course, he goes, and a little tiny ladder came out and out came these little green men with their spacesuits on. And they came right up to me and they said, Ben Gazzara's a good actor. Why doesn't he work more? So completely out of left field. Again, I'm not doing it justice, but you get the gist.
Yeah. Nobody will replace Gilbert. He's irreplaceable. And I've been going down the rabbit hole on YouTube, watching him do local television to promote his gigs. And that is a sight to behold. I've never seen him doing local television till he died. Are you there or did you freeze? You froze. The gods are, technology gods are not being kind to me to tonight's show. Are you there?
Yes.
The miracle of his family, the beautiful wife and these spectacular, these adorable, his family was spectacular.
It's so nice to see that Gilbert found that kind of love, because, if there was anybody in his younger days when you said, oh, this is somebody who's going to spend his latter years in the home for old irrelevant comedians, it would have been Gilbert. By the way, I got a room reserved there.
I'm right there.
But yeah, his family is beautiful, and I don't know if you've ever seen the documentary about him, Gilbert, but it's really, if you don't just fall in love with him as a person after watching that, you're crazy.
The genius of Gilbert was he allowed himself to be loved unconditionally. That he found Dara, and he allowed himself to be loved unconditionally, and that's his genius.
Well, it was funny because right around the time he started seeing Dara, I took him to lunch. If you had lunch with Gilbert, you take him to lunch. And we were walking back from the deli, and he was like, I have to stop in here. I want to get some lipstick for this girl. And he goes into like F.W. Woolworth's. And he can't decide between the $2.50 lipstick or the $3.50 lipstick. And I had to convince him, Gilbert, go with the 350. Trust me on this. Go with the 350. But it was really cute. He was like, he went with he went with the 350. So, this was a big deal, as you well know.
Yeah.
But after he came out to Los Angeles to do, I was doing a series of Setlist for UK television. And I brought Gilbert out to Los Angeles, the series out here. We shot it in Los Angeles, outside of San Francisco, and here in Los Angeles, San Francisco, and London. And I flew Gilbert out to LA to do the series from here. And I hadn't seen him in a long time. We just had a quiet moment. I was like, Gilbert, how's Dara? How are the kids? And, oh, great. Are you digging the kids? Yeah. Congratulations on the new kid. Yeah, it's great. They're a great audience, he said, And I said, Gilbert, are they funny? And he leaned in and he goes, to be honest, I cared more for their earlier work. He was just so funny. And he loved to laugh too. He would laugh just as hard at, joke and at his own jokes too, which made it just beautiful.
Yeah.
But so he used to do this Murray the Agent character, right? Where he would do his own like inner monologue. It would be like he was basically Murray the Agent was the commenting for the audience that didn't get Gilbert, and they go like, I don't get it. This is not comedy. I don't know. He comes up here. He does a joke. Where's the joke? A joke is a setup and a punchline. I don't see the jokes here. And then he would go back to his act, and then he'd come back as Murray again and put the glasses back on as Murray. He'd go, I just don't see it, and then he would refer back to Murray. And then at some point he would like take a cocktail napkin and put it on his head like a babushka. And he would, and the same glasses. And he'd look up and he'd go, has anybody seen my husband? He's a handsome fella. That was a lot about comedy. And it was just so unpredictable,
right?
Off the wall and silly and funny. But at the same time, it was so smart. I mean, he absolutely was a genius. I mean, can you think of anybody, well-known or not well-known, can you think of anybody in comedy that you could say, oh, Gilbert's kind of like him?
Right.
I can't.
Right.
Even
John Biner maybe had a bit of a little.
Maybe.
Not quite, but did you ever hear John Biner?
No, I've thought about Charlie Callis a little bit, maybe, but there's more differences between them than there are similarities.
I agree with you.
Even like somebody like Robin Williams, you go, oh, that's Jonathan Winters sped up. It's like you can see the influence where it comes from. But Gilbert was influenced by everything funny he had ever seen and nothing at all. Those were his influences. Like just anything funny that he had ever thought of or ever seen, he absorbed, and it turned into Gilbert. He was just remarkable. And a sweetheart, a sweet, gentle soul for all of the darkness and, all of the, controversy. He was so childlike. It was beautiful. I'm really, really saddened to lose him.
Yeah. And I'm going down the rabbit hole on YouTube watching him, and it's breathtaking how original he is. By the way,
there is if you do a YouTube search for Gilbert Gottfried and Setlist, you'll see a clip that we put up from the British series, which has never aired here. And Setlist, for those people that don't know, Setlist is a format created by the brilliant Troy Conrad, where a comedian goes up completely unprepared, and we give them a set list, one topic at a time, while they're in front of the audience. They see the topic for the first time when the audience sees the topic for the first time. And it's just like, it's like skydiving for comics. Mm-hmm. And you get to see the wheels turning and really get to identify what's this person about, it's really great. Anyway, Gilbert did that. And he got the topic.
Follow the
Thomas Edison's. Oh yeah. And the topic that he has, there's a clip of, is Thomas Edison's testicle experiments. Fucking hilarious. So check that one out while you're in your Gilbert rabbit hole.
I will.
I think it's a duck hole with Gilbert. It's a duck hole.
Yeah. The George Takai roast at the Friars Club is relentlessly horrific. I don't know if you've seen that.
You know what? I haven't seen it in a long time. But what I did watch recently was, did you see when he was the sign language interpreter for Marley Matlin at the Donald Trump roast? That is worth Googling right now. Do it right now. Watch it right now with me it's really funny.
Okay. Let's talk about the Aristocrats. When you asked countless comedians to tell one joke, and when Gilbert was telling the joke, did you know that this was hands down going to be the one everybody remembered?
You know, when Penn, Jillette and I we've been talking about doing that for years. We've been talking about, but we never really thought of it as an actual movie. We actually thought, wouldn't it be funny if we got like a bunch of comedians to just do the same joke, you know, their own versions of it. And it would be like a fun thing we can show friends, you know? And we talked about it for so many years, it would become like a running gag. And then one night I was out in Vegas with him sitting at the Pepper Mill, and he just said, listen, if I commit to this, can you commit to this? Like, can we actually do this? And I was like, yeah, I'll give it a shot. And the first, two people that we talked about, because we would always talk about how funny, I had heard Bob Saget do it, fucking around with friends. I had heard Gilbert do it. Penn had heard Gilbert do it. He may have heard Bob Saget do it, whatever. But right off the bat, we said, look, if we get Gilbert and Bob Saget, that's going to be hilarious in and of itself. And so we kind of knew, because we knew Gilbert and we knew Bob, and we knew the two of them would go the distance and they wouldn't hold back. And they're just so freaky funny. Mm-hmm. But we were surprised by some amazing, like Sarah Silverman, I think, is extraordinarily funny in it. And she did a kind of meta thing where she's actually the girl in the act talking about the act, and Billy the mime. I mean, who would have ever thunk? And Eric Mead doing a card trick of it, and just there was so many funny iterations of it that we just kept going. We just kept going and doing more and more people, and we shot people for like almost 5 years. Off and on. I was leaving the country and coming back, and was working in Vegas, and we'd get together every now and then and do some more shooting and call some more people, whatever. And it's funny because after every interview we did, every time we shot someone, Penn would say to me, hey, you think we got anything here? And I would say, I don't know. I just don't know. And go to another bunch. Do you think we got anything? I don't know. And then we did Carlin. And we came out of Carlin's office, and he goes, do you think we got anything? I went, yep. I knew right away that we had something after we did Carlin. I knew that he had given us a spine where we could work from. So it was really, we never set out to make a movie. We never thought it would be, a full length thing. We never thought anybody would be interested in it except, lunatics. And it just turned into something else, but his philosophy of it all along was, jazz. He was like, we get to hear musicians do their version of the same song, and there's standards that everybody does, and he goes, you never get to do that with comedy because comedians don't want to do the same thing that other people are doing.
Right.
What if, and that's what set us off on it. And we knew, and there aren't a lot of jokes that are, totally free. There's not a lot of jokes where the setup and the punchline are the same, and then you just got an wide open field in the middle. There's not a lot of them like that.
Right.
So yeah, we just landed on that one. And Gilbert, it's an interesting thing because people think that the movie was inspired by Gilbert at the Friars roast for Hugh Hefner, where he did the 9/11 joke. But the truth of the matter is, if you see the movie before you see Gilbert at the Friars roast, Gilbert's doing the joke around a conference table, which is where we shot him in a hotel. And we did that a month or two before 9/11.
Really?
Yeah, maybe even longer.
So you, when 9/11 hit, you were thrilled and dancing. This is a big opportunity.
No, but that's the funny thing is that, Gilbert inadvertently gave us a third act.
Mm-hmm.
That we had been working on the movie, and we shot Gilbert, and we knew that he was hilarious, and we knew that that was going to be funny. But then after the Friars roast, I got wind of the fact that Gilbert did the Aristocrats joke there. And, we believe that the reason he went to the Aristocrats joke was because he had just spent a whole day doing it with us. And it was like fresh in his mind, or it was just, he had gone to such depths of depravity with us that he thought, I'm in a hole. I may as well just dig it as deep as I can.
Right.
What's the most, depraved thing I can do right now? Oh yeah, the Aristocrats came to his mind. So we had already been working on the movie, before he had done that roast and before that whole incident happened. But without realizing it, he ended up giving us a third act. It gave us almost a raison d'etre for, why we talked about this movie for 90 minutes.
So offensive humor. Is the Aristocrats joke offensive? It's dirty, but is it offensive?
I don't know. And I don't even know if, I don't even know if you get away with it now. I mean, if I tried to release it now, I don't know. Everything's different now. And people just don't seem to be able to let go of all sorts of stuff to just enjoy a joke anymore. I mean, is the joke racist? Well, sometimes. Is the joke sexist? Sometimes. Does the joke involve pedophilia? Yeah. Sometimes. Does the joke involve bestiality? Sometimes. Does the joke involve horrible diseases? Sometimes. I don't know. It's, but that's the beauty of it, is that, you can go into something that's so, dark and ugly if it were real. And it's just about joy and light, when you're just having fun. But you got to have the right mindset. I don't know. I don't know. Can you understand anything now about what is?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have a room filled with 300 people, and one asshole is heckling, and they tend to dictate the comedy. One person is saying, I don't like this. And 299 people are going, oh, okay, we'll take our orders from you instead of the comedian. That's what's happening.
Except that's happening on Twitter with millions.
Yeah, but Twitter isn't real. And half of Twitter are bots. Twitter doesn't make money. It's not profitable. Twitter is a mirage.
Yes, but I'm talking about in terms of comedians who do something that's misunderstood. It gets, repeated and reframed over and over and over, and it becomes like, well, you need to be in the room. Bill Burr always used to say, it's like, one person with a blog can suddenly change everything because you said something that pissed off one person, but that person has a blog, and the blog gets picked up, and blah, 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 blah. And so I don't even know what's offensive anymore. I don't even know. I mean, and I think it's good that we are aware and trying to deal with things like misogyny and racism and homophobia in comedy. I think that's great. I think that's a conversation we should have been having, for pretty much all of civilization. Right. I think that's all great. But somewhere along the line, it seems like a lot of people have foregone the fact that it's just art. It's not real. I mean.
Well, pedophilia is wrong, which is why it's funny.
You're going out on a limb here.
Really?
Well, that's the thing. That's also, racism was funny to people who were past the conversation, to people who let me make it easier. You make a Hitler joke because you make Nazi jokes. Nazis were like the go-to. Well, now there's actual Nazis, and they're actually doing things, that matter. So that's not so funny anymore. And, it's just sort of the edges have shifted and moved, and It's crazy. Did you ever think that in your lifetime you would have to be dealing with Nazis? Did you ever think that Nazis would be a thing again in your lifetime?
Yeah, I worked for Jon Stewart. Although Hitler was an original thinker, that's not fair. So,
well, what was the thing? What was you saw the thing that Jimmy Carr got in trouble for, right?
Well, Jimmy Carr gets into trouble though. That's his thing.
You saw? Did you see the joke that he did that got him into a lot of trouble recently?
How much trouble can he get into? He's beloved in Great Britain. What kind of trouble?
Well, now I don't know. Something not so much. No, I'm sure he'll overcome it because there is no such thing as cancel culture. That's all a canard.
Right.
Yeah, he did a joke about how people always talk about how Hitler killed 6 million Jews and he killed 2 million Romani. And he goes, but people don't talk about that because people don't like to talk about the good things he did.
That's funny.
It's hilarious. But, you and I know right off the bat that that's absurd.
Right.
But, a lot of people heard it and said, oh, that's really horrible and it's really offensive.
Well, he probably shouldn't have done that. He knew better. I mean, there are things you kind of know that joke is going to upset people.
It's funny because I always wondered, like, what group did he, what groups did he choose not to do before he landed on Romani?
Right. People have a right to tell any joke. People also have a right to be offended by any joke. And I think this is what keeps comedy going. This is the conversation we need to have about comedy and what makes it so interesting, what is funny and what is offensive. And I hope we never resolve this. This is not to be resolved. It's an ongoing, fluid conversation.
I got to tell you, in my lifetime, I've never seen comedy get as much attention as it's gotten lately. And I've never seen it really understood by so many people as a real art form. Like, that's huge. That's huge. Right. I'm 64 years old. When I was a kid, starting out, hanging at the Improv, nobody used to think of it as an art. I mean, comedians did, but nobody in the public thought of it as like a real art form. I mean, I think you can teach courses on it the way you teach music appreciation. I think you can do that with stand-up too. But that was never anything that was generally understood by the average audience. But it seems to be that comedy has really gotten some respect, enough respect for people to get upset.
Well, good comedians are dangerous because they get to the point, and if they're talented, they say things that reveal something about the zeitgeist that's unsettling. That laugh is unsettling because it reveals something about all of us, and it's the laugh that people are afraid of.
Carlin, the great quote by Carlin, he said, the job of a comedian is to find out where the line is, deliberately cross it, and bring some along with you who are happy they came.
Right. But it's also to simplify things, to make things digestible, to explain why we are where we're at. I was reading about Orwell, and he was complaining about the left, how they talk in highfalutin terms and they care more about, this is George Orwell complaining that socialists and people on the left rather come across being smart than actually selling the idea of solidarity and collectivization. And he said, you're more likely to get a clear understanding of socialism from a music hall comedian than you would an academic.
Well, that's a really good point. Yeah, that's another thing that Carlin used to say. He used to refer to himself as a vulgar comedian. Vulgar from the sense of the people.
The vulgate.
The vulgate, exactly. And he used to talk about how comedy is really a very populist thing. And he being, coming from a working class background, relates to people in a different way. But I always said that, um, comedians know more about the tenor of the country, I think, than certainly any politician or any government official does. I mean, because first of all, we have to figure out how to talk to everybody in the country. We have to talk about, we have to figure out we have to know what they believe before we can subvert it or refer to it. We have to talk about what they know. We can't talk about something that they're completely ignorant of or aren't hip to in some way. So we have to speak to people in a way that's really approachable and really accessible. And on top of all of that, we interact with every social class all the time.
Right.
We're on planes, we're in cabs, we're talking to audience members, we're dealing with club owners, we're dealing with press, we're dealing with, you get meetings, all this. It's just a huge cross section. You do corporate gigs and all of a sudden you got friends who are millionaires and billionaires, I really feel like if you really want to know the tenor of a country, the comedians are the ones who can tell you what this country's really all about.
Is the subject matter for a comedian limited? Is there an Overton window? I don't mean Rick.
Well, that's we're back to Gilbert again. I mean, I don't think so. I think if it's funny, it's funny.
But can you talk? You can do pedophile jokes within reason. You can do sex jokes. You can be disgusting. But can you talk about everything? And I don't mean like bestiality. I'm talking about, tackling climate change.
I don't see why not. I mean, I used to get in a lot of trouble. I did a lot of religion material. The religion to me is like one of the stupidest things on the planet. And I used to do a lot of material about it. I used to do a lot of material about Catholicism, since that's how I was raised. And I used to get a lot of pushback. But there was no Twitter at the time. But I remember, I got spit upon, people really upset about me saying things about the Pope or some shit like that, and about, I would just talk about the pedophilia in the church as if I made that up out of thin air, and people would get really upset. So I think there's always going to be people who get upset. Whenever you do anything that's in any way incendiary for somebody, I think I think you're going to piss some people off.
But most comedy that you see is about relationships, sex, growing up, personal stories.
Yeah,
right.
That's the trend in comedy now, is very confessional.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, this is great. It's great to see you. Yeah. Who do you like? What comedians out there? Boy, you found Bo Burnham. I remember 10 years ago, we were working on Green Room and you kept telling me about Bo Burnham. Like nobody knew. You found him before anybody else did.
Yeah, boy, is he a multi-talent or what? Boy, he's remarkable. Yeah. Well, I haven't been out interacting with too many comedians lately, given pandemic and all. And I haven't been to any of the festivals lately, but there's a few people out there I like. I saw this kid the other night, actually. It was my first night at a club in years. His name is Max Beasley. So interesting and clever. And also there's a whole bunch of layers to him right now. He's kind of emo, Stephen Wright-ish, kind of like line writer, but he's also transitioning from male to female. And he's doing material about that, but it's not confessional. It's really funny jokes.
He's not calling it a segue?
He's not, it's not like a Hannah Gadsby kind of thing at all. He's literally just doing great setup punchline jokes about it. So interesting. He's really good.
Wow.
I'm going to keep my eye on him. Sure. I want to see him again. Or her. Who knows? If you see him, If you wait long enough, it'll be her.
Right, right. Comedy, it's not quite back yet, is it? Because of the COVID.
It seems to be here in LA. It seems to be. I mean, yeah, it seems to be. I was in some rooms that had some, some people in them. I don't think everything's back yet. I mean, it's a little weird. I mean, there are a lot of people who are really hesitant, and there's this new wave coming of what's it called? The new strain. Right. So I think a lot of people are hesitant to go out, but actually the 3 venues that I've been in recently, 3 or 4 venues that I've been in recently, they all ask for proof of vaccination before going in, and they let everybody take their masks off. So I don't know. Are we done with this pandemic, or are we just tired of it? Is it over, or we just got bored?
I have a feeling we got bored. I have a feeling it's now just going to be a chronic condition that, and it seems to me, everyone I know is getting it. And it's not as, because of the vaccines and the boosters, right. They say it's not that bad. I think a lot of people are I think we've given up trying to control it. I think the right wing, I think DeSantis and Joe Rogan won. And
well, I'm okay with that as long as they're still giving out vaccines, because
right.
And eventually that's what it's going to be, right? Like a flu. They say it will be endemic and it'll be like a flu and you get a seasonal shot or whatever. But
unless you're immunocompromised.
Right.
Unless you're morbidly obese, like half this country.
Like half this country.
Diabetic. So if you're young and you're in shape, it's just like the flu. And anyway, to be continued. Come back. It's good to see.
I'm gonna miss seeing people getting duct taped to airplane seats, though. That was really entertaining.
I know. I think that'll still go on.
I hope so. I hope we don't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Thank you. I love you, Paul. It's great to see you.
I love you too, David Feldman.
Come back.
And
come back more often.
To Gilbert. Long may his comedy live.
Right. When's the next funeral? Who's next? That's why I spoke to Jeff Frost.
I'm not feeling that well.
All right.
It doesn't seem like this year is like an Agatha Christie novel. Who's killing the comedians of the comedy boom?
I'm telling you, eventually my phone's going to start ringing again.
This game is about attrition.
Right. I had one joke that I didn't have the courage to tell, but I'll tell you. When Louis died, Louis Anderson, I said, they always die in threes. and somebody said he would have loved that joke. I said, I can't. I'd feel.
Oh, he would have loved it.
I know.
Well, my joke about when Gilbert died, I wrote to another really good friend of him, and I said, well, he finally picked up a check.
Yeah.
All right. We love you, Gilbert.
Well, yeah, we love Gilbert. I love you. And come back soon, not to remember somebody who passed. Let's talk about people we wish would pass. Let's
do that show. Let's do the people who should have been. That show will go on for hours.
Go do fantasy in memoriam. Let's sell that to you have connections, fantasy in memoriam, where we just remember people we wish were dead. And we bring them on as guests.
Oh, that's hilarious. I wish you owned a network.
But you sell shows. Why don't you pitch that?
You see all my shows on the air now. You see them all?
You're better at it than I am.
You and I, we're still here together now, aren't we, David?
Yes. I love you. Thank you, sir.
Love you too.
I'm going to bring you on with John Ross.
Man, I haven't spoken to him in ages. God, he's funny.
Yeah. Let's do that. That would be fun.
That would be fun.
Okay.
All
I'll
right.
see you soon. Thank you.
Say goodbye to your viewer.
Goodbye.